Hi YouTube, welcome to another edition of Horror Hands, and for this video I'm going to go through 5 shocking scenes from horror movies that no one seems to talk about. So let me know what you think about these and let's get straight to it. Okay, first up we have The Toxic Avenger from 1984, and the scene in question is the vehicular murder scene. So in Toxic Avenger, the punks that live in the city like to drive around at night running over pedestrians, and they have a rudimental point system on how much they get depending on who they hit and kill. And on this night, this kid is only about 11 or 12 years old. He kind of helmets up and goes out for a night bike ride. Why you do that in Tromaville, I don't know. And he becomes victim to the bad guys who are driving around looking for someone to run down. And unfortunately, they get him in his sights and running down with a whole lot of unnecessary glee. But this one, if it wasn't bad enough hitting a child, this scene is really mercilessly gruesome. They hit the kid, who then kind of flails around on the road, all bloodied up in a really bad way, only to then be repeatedly run over by these real nasty sort of street thugs who even get out at one point to take a picture of the gruesome mess that this kid is now in. And it's just one of those scenes where I watch this and I feel like this one really pushes it to the limits of taste and acceptability, and it's uncharacteristically lacking of any kind of slapstick or juvenile relief, which most of the Toxic Avenger movies had. This one is just an unflinchingly nasty vehicular killing of this innocent kid, and it's pretty tough to watch. And admittedly, I kind of forgot about this scene until I rewatched Toxic Avenger a few weeks ago, but boy was I shocked by this one and how it just stands out as being a really sort of seriously nasty, gruesome kill. So yeah, first scene on this list is the vehicular murder scene from Toxic Avenger. Next up we have Don't Go in the House from 1980 and the burning scene. And Don't Go in the House, one of the video nasties here in the UK, I would say entirely down to this scene which I'm going to mention. And Don't Go in the House, this one's a bit akin to The Driller Killer, whereas it's a film that had one infamously violent scene, but apart from that is actually quite a slow burn character study, even sort of a drama at times, which involves this guy abducting women, bringing them back to his big house, and he has this kind of steel room where he hangs them up and kills them with a flamethrower. So yeah, pretty strong stuff. And this is a scene which I'm mentioning for this video, the particular scene where he has the woman strung up by the ceiling and shoots her with the flamethrower and burns her to death. And this is a remarkably well done scene. It looks real, and it should get more credit than what it does for just being a really well put together scene. And now in terms of when they were making it, I believe they filmed it separately. They filmed the woman reacting and then filmed the flamethrower shooting, and then with some kind of overlapping camera work they put it together and filmed it as one scene, and it just came out incredible. In fact, on the set, even the cast and crew, when they were looking at it through the camera lens, they recoiled by how realistic this scene was. So it does stand out in the whole movie as being a very impactful scene and one that really takes you by surprise. Like I say, I think the filmmakers should get a bit of credit for what was quite kind of cutting edge and revolutionary filmmaking tactics for what's a pretty kind of grungy video nasty. But yeah, whenever I watch that movie, like I say, it is a slow burn film. There's not really anything else going on in there in terms of video nastiness, but it has this one unbelievably good death by flamethrower scene. So yeah, next on this video, Don't Go in the House and the flamethrower burning scene. Next up we have a shocking scene, but shocking in a bit of a different nature. This one comes from Sleepaway Camp from 1983, and it's the checking out the children scene, shall we say. Now, Sleepaway Camp, I will say I'm not the biggest fan of this movie. I think it has a few cool deaths, but on the whole, it's not a slasher film that I watch all that much, and I don't particularly enjoy it. And there's a scene in this movie quite early on in the film that completely turned me off. And no one ever mentions this or calls the movie out for it. And the scene in question is, like I say, early on, and the school kids arrive to the camp. And they are kids, they're like 10 years old, something like that. And one of the older camp counselors is like checking out the kids and ogling over them and sort of like saying what he wants to do to them. And even one of the other older camp counselors is laughing that the kids aren't even old enough to understand what the guy wants to do. And it's such a creepy and cringy scene. And as soon as that was on, I was like, I'm out. This is not the movie for me. And it's, as I say, it's not a movie that I enjoy. And even in the 1980s, that just seems like a wildly inappropriate line and scene to include in the movie. And it's just not one that I enjoy. And I don't go for Sleepaway Camp, mainly due to that reason. So, yeah, next on this list is the checking out the children scene from Sleepaway Camp. Next up we have Witchfinder General from 1968 and another burning scene. This one sees a young woman who is suspected of being a witch, and she is executed in the village by being set fire to. And this is a really shocking scene. She's kind of tied on this really high pole, which is then slowly lowered into the flames as the village watches on. And this is just another one of these burning scenes, which is remarkably well done. There's very few cutaways. She's slowly lowered into these flames and just burns in front of the screen. And it's simple and effective, but unflinchingly nasty. And in a film where there's quite a lot of unpleasant scenes of death and torture, that one was a real standout as just being particularly unpleasant. In fact, I did find Witchfinder General rather shocking the first time I watched it, because I'd not associated Vincent Price with such kind of stark violence and unpleasantness. So yeah, it's always a hard-hitting movie, but the scene of the woman slowly being lowered into the flames has always stuck with me. I think it's quite a strong death scene, actually, particularly for 1968. So yeah, next on this list is the Witchfinder General and the burning scene. And the last shocking scene for this list that no one ever talks about is from Maniac Cop 2 from 1990. And this is a big spoiler, so if you're planning on watching Maniac Cop 2, and you should because it's an awesome sequel, but maybe come back to this video once you've watched the movie. But the scene in question is the death of Bruce Campbell. So Bruce Campbell, he is sort of in Maniac Cop 1, he's one of the main characters, one of the heroes. He returns in Maniac Cop 2. So naturally, you think he's going to be a key player. You think the movie's going to follow him. And very early on in the movie, he's just hanging out by this newspaper stand in the city, reading a newspaper, and suddenly he is iced off by the Maniac Cop, comes up behind him and stabs him in a pretty gruesome scene. And that's it. Bruce Campbell is killed in Maniac Cop 2 very early on, way before we had like this kind of Game of Thrones style where anyone could be killed off at any minute. So that was a real shock when I watched that. First time I saw it, it of course took me by surprise. I almost thought it was going to be like a dream sequence or something like that, because they often sort of pull the rug from under you in that kind of way. But no, he is brutally killed off very early in Maniac Cop 2 after being the hero in the first one. And I always find that shocking, and it's a death that I don't hear many people talk about. So there we go, guys. That is 5 shocking horror movie scenes that no one seems to talk about. Let me know what you think about those scenes. Maybe you talk about those particular ones all the time. Maybe there's some other ones that you think are more shocking and nobody talks about them. Let me know what they are. I'd be really interested to know. So thank you very much for watching, and stay tuned for more videos.